Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. It's that time of year where I can tell you it's Sunday night and you've probably got no idea, so we'll pretend. You all right, Dave?
Yeah, I'm all right, Dan. I've had what you've had, I think.
Yeah, I think everybody
Yeah,
has.
I don't think anybody, my in-laws don't think I like them because I went down there for Christmas and stayed in bed all for two
Yeah,
days. So yeah, I didn't even go to the game on Friday night. I was
and must be serious if you're missing an
indeed.
Eagles
Yeah, I
game
think
now.
that was the fight when I finally got some credibility with everybody else. Actually,
I had that once where I can't remember how long ago it was, but I was super ill and I ended up having a temperature of 102. And my wife was like, "There's nothing wrong with you." I can't remember what had happened. Something had happened. She wasn't happy. Maybe I'd been out the night before or something. Thought it was a hangover or something, and it really
yeah,
wasn't. And then I went, "I'm not going to the game tonight." And she went, "Oh gosh, are you really ill?"
yes,
Yeah,
it's the last card to pull, but
yeah.
it's a it's a
It's a
valuable one.
substantial one, yeah. So I'll might as well give you the days. Let's go back to Friday if anybody remembers when Friday was. Caledonia Gladiators 85, Manchester Basketball 91. No Kane, Jimenez, Fagbenley, Onwas, Okirafor, Ali Hodgins was dressed but didn't play. I think that's everybody. Basically, they had six players and two kids.
There's a hell of a Scrabble score in the players
Yeah,
that weren't, isn't
yeah,
there?
it is. Yeah.
Well, Friday was kind of the night that I think I reached my tipping point for the season because
Mm,
I watched the Newcastle game live on the screen, and then I watched the other three games by about midnight. Going
mm,
through the 10 seconds and chopping things off on YouTube. And at the end, I just remember thinking there is nothing I've watched in the last 4.5 hours which has taught me anything at all different about to what I already knew
mm,
about everything. It's just like we are now into the routine grind of the year.
mm,
Um, and this game was just exactly was the same. It was. Manchester weren't really ready to play, apart from DJ Mitchell, who was.
mm, mm.
And Caledonia were playing without any fear because they were all going to play, so they could just play.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
didn't have that many bodies, and there was a lot of threes went up, and Manchester's not really a team
So
that you just had.
yeah, Manchester Mitchell hitting threes at one end, Barnes, Wilson, Frame, Whelan, excuse me, at the other. Gladiators went on an 11-2 run to lead by seven. Manchester with a 9-0 response to make it 24-26. That was kind of the pattern of the game at that point.
Yeah, I
Uh,
kind of
go on.
felt that Manchester. You got because of the bodies, I think, and because of the difficulties that Caledonia had. You kind of felt that Manchester were going to should be winning by more, and I felt that Manchester were a little bit lackadaisical in the way that they approached this game. Of course, the background being that they'd beaten them down there
Beating them
only
by 25 the week before.
by 25 the week before. And as I say, I think if but Caledonia are not going to make their identity this year from now on about shutting down 3-point shooters. I think we can
No,
probably be
no, I think we've established that.
we've established that. If you're going to make them against Caledonia, you're probably going to win. If you're going to miss them, well, you might win, but it might take you a bit longer.
Mm,
That's the Cheshire thing from Sunday. Um, So, they're kind of, and to a certain degree, you're sort of short of bodies and you don't have that much continuity. So, man-to-man defense is hard. Zone
mm,
defense is easier, but it's also a pretty substantial risk and reward thing.
yeah,
And, if you've got Nathan Keogh in the corner and DJ Mitchell at the top of the key, then if I'm Manchester, those odds I kind of like. So the game just kind of went to and fro, and
yeah.
Caledonia played hard, and Barnes played hard and really effectively. And Caledonia still have size.
Mm.
That's the one thing they do have. Um, but you always got the impression, I always got the impression that Manchester should be winning this game. Why aren't they
Yeah,
winning?
I was the same watching it. Manchester 10 in a row to lead 28-39 just before halftime, but Caledonia had it down to one early in the second half. Barnes with the fourth foul in the third quarter as well. Shall we just get to the last couple of minutes? Because it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bit of a. Gladiators had a couple of layups on consecutive plays that would have tied the game. And then with 150 to go, Mitchell hits a three, 81-86.
Yeah, and they really weren't warned. they really didn't take the warnings about Mitchell because I think he'd made about six by that point already.
Yeah.
And you know he was keen because he had his hands up in the half court. When the ball was still in the back court, he was on his hands
Mm,
up to catch it and shoot it. And he was in one of those frames of mind, one of those moods where you felt like as soon as you caught it, you felt it was going in. Just throw
yeah.
it. Um, and and from memory, they would be able to generate better shots than Caledonia were.
Mm,
Um, they I'm trying to go back to what I didn't know the score when I watched this, but I kind of skimmed the last few minutes. Um, the difficulty that Caledonia have ultimately is that without Kane, Wilson Frame is the primary and almost the secondary ball handler
yeah. Yeah.
for, and he has a certain skill set. I don't think Manchester particularly dealt with his skill set very well in this game, but it's also in the last 2 minutes, it's a skill set you can't take away if you kind of motivated to do so.
Mm. Malcolm replied with a corner three, 136 to go,
Yeah.
84
That was
86.
that's the other thing I remember about this game. So it reminded me of that corner three. There was some bad defense in this game.
Mm,
The strong side corner threes, multiple. I think there was one in the first half where KO just left maybe Malcolm in the corner or somebody in the corner, and you just think that this is just easy defense. Easy stuff that you don't give up. You don't help
mm,
off that side. You don't give up cheap shots. You don't. You've just gone up five. You certainly don't give up the three to Fraser Malcolm in the corner like they did.
mm.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Ashton Langford missed. Barnes then is fouled. He goes 1 for 2. He's normally a very good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
85 86 with 106 to go. Mitchell misses a dunk, but an offensive rebound from DeBose and a drive, 85-88 with 43 and a half seconds to go.
Yeah,
And
and the
then,
impression was that the Bulls didn't really want to lose this game,
no, no.
for probably obvious reasons.
Mm. Barnes in close under pressure, misses. Manchester rebound. Gladiators had only committed 2 fouls at that point, so it's sort of, uh,
Petered out, didn't it?
yeah, petered out. And then Mitchell hit another three just to cap it off.
The one thing that struck me as interesting about the game, about the teams, obviously there's nothing you can take from Caledonia because they've got half a team. That Manchester sat, who was going to play at the end? Well, he sat down both his centres at the end, Delpesh
Mm,
and Effigy. They didn't play the last 5 minutes.
mm,
So he went with that kind of smaller lineup with Mitchell at the five and Keogh and Dubose and Ashton Langford and somebody else. Mitchell, Keogh, Dubose, Ashton Langford, and another one of the guards. Madrid. And so suddenly everybody, when the game gets tight, the centers bang around for 30 minutes. When the
mm.
game gets tight, put all your scorers in there.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought that hurt them a little bit because they did, they gave up rebounds. I don't think that's a great defensive unit. I think FJ helps them defensively, but it's maybe interesting something to watch as to that lineup with Mitchell at the five. It's difficult to guard.
Mm.
Because you've got to get out to him, but who's going to, your center's basically pulled out to the perimeter.
Wilson Frame, 19 points, 8 assists. Dunbar, 17 points and 10 rebounds. Whelan, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Mitchell, 8 of 10 for 3 points for 26 points. KO, 20. DeBose, 11. The rest of the team, by the way, were 2 of 27 from three.
Yeah, so yeah, they just didn't have that requisite level of focus, I thought, in this game. I really thought, um, Mitchell bailed them out, basically.
Mm, mm. Let's go to Leicester. Leicester Riders 83, Bristol Flyers 74. No Thomas Edwards or Louis Still. Riders scored 15 unanswered points in the first quarter to lead 19-5. If I'm honest, that was it, really.
Yeah, if I remember, this was the same game that they played at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, not too dissimilar.
Basically Bristol. Um, Look, Leicester's starting lineup is jumping on teams. I think we're losing because they're playing close games. I think we're losing track of the fact that their starting lineup is really, really good
Mm,
and is generally building leads. And then it's kind of what happens with the bench that is kind of bringing things back a bit closer.
mm,
Um, and it's almost, I think it's the discipline of them makes a difference defensively. I just I mean, it's an interesting thing that Bristol are doing, and they're going to have to make. Obviously, they've got a cup final coming up in the end in 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time. They initially started the season with Keely Johnson as a point guard,
Mm,
just which was a perfectly understandable kind of experiment, lead ball handler type of thing. Get the pull in the ball's hands as much as you can. Obviously, that involved Tennyson coming in. Tennyson didn't want to play defense, even though he could play offense. So he goes, and they bring in instead of Tennyson, they don't bring in like for like. They bring in a replacement point guard, Lewis, and Samuels continues to come off the bench. So they kind of change at that point. They change their structure to the view that well, actually, we need a point guard to play alongside Keedy. Even though Keedy was injured for a little bit, that's still the way they've gone. But he gets injured very early on, and so the question then is, well, do they start Walsh or do they start Samuels?
mm,
Well, Walsh is the point guard. Walsh is the two guard, which would basically be clunky, but it would result in Keely having the ball a lot at the point guard spot, which is what they've kind of gone away from. But it would give them more production offensively than they get from Samuels, who handles the basketball and is pesky and does all the things he's meant to do, but quite often isn't on court in the crunch time.
mm,
And it's difficult to win in this league without a bona fide scoring threat at the point guard spot. And Samuels isn't yet a bona fide scoring threat. He's doing a lot of things better, and he's getting there. But he's still a young kid. He played limited minutes over the past 3 or 4 years, and their decision that going forward is depending on obviously how Louis is whether or not it's going to be more Walsh or more Samuels. And I don't know the answer to that. It's a difficult one because they both bring different things. What I will say about this game was, Andreas scored what 2 timeouts in the first 5.5 minutes,
mm. Yeah, yeah.
and I didn't like the second one because the second, not that made much difference, but you know, it- I'm not generally a fan of calling a timeout when things are going wrong and then putting the same five back on the court.
Mm,
And saying, "Go and prove me wrong." I get the logic of it. I get kind of the mentality of it. You're saying, what's going on? Go on. You don't want to choose somebody out on the bench and then sit them down.
mm,
But generally, by the time that second time out was called, it was still, I don't think Walsh had touched the floor. There's a couple of guys who hadn't touched the floor yet, and so for me, the second time out, yeah, used as a kind of as a substitution situation instead,
mm,
because it's at that point, your mentality lesson is kind of gone. You got to try and find a lineup that works on the floor, and I don't think that lineup, kind of played into Leicester's hands. The other thing about Bristol's offense is that the way they are at the moment, obviously without Tennyson and with Walsh coming off the bench, Sheffield becomes very important for them to score the
mm,
ball. And Sheffield's a very streaky scorer. We've seen him have games of 30 plus. We've seen him have games where he hardly shoots a basketball or he's
mm.
2 of 11. And if he's not having one of his games where the ball's going in and going down, then and Samuels is on the court as well, then they become quite straightforward to defend. And Leicester don't make defensive mistakes. Actually, they're better than that. They don't make defensive mistakes, and they've got a guy cleaning up at the back to
Yeah,
take
yeah,
away shots,
yeah.
and he drives. So you have to be on point, or you have to have a guy who's really ready to go off like Akaru did, to kind of get yourself in front. And none of those things happened. And I just thought maybe it's again also maybe the fact that I like being right, but I do think losing to Newcastle fire is lit a fire under Leicester.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not a kind of a fire which is 10 minutes of kind of anger and aggression and kind of look at
Mm,
us and chest thumping. I'm talking more about the kind of the concentrated um, focus on not just next game but maybe next 4 or 5 games.
yeah.
Whereas I think for Bristol, you get to your final, and maybe the same in Newcastle in due course as well. You get to the final, and that focus is suddenly just a little bit different,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I don't like total intangibles because it's very difficult to prove. I like numbers and all that stuff, but I think it's there. I
yeah.
think they, I think they are, I think they are fueled by the fact that they didn't win a game that they thought they should win the semi-final, and they've not got to a final. And I know that start on five is really, really good. Let's be
Mm.
honest. So yeah, and you're right about the game because after that, Bristol put a couple of runs, but it was a nine
Yeah,
or ten.
Bristol had an 8-0 run in the third quarter to make it 61
Well, you know why that was, don't
56.
you?
I'm trying to think now why.
But Thompson hit his ankle.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. He went out injured for a couple of
Yeah, I
minutes and they
mean,
suddenly
look,
could
I mean, if
score.
you ever want, if you ever want to see the the archetypal coaches, oh shit face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Have a look at Rob when Thompson goes down.
yeah, yeah.
Because I've been there, you just sat there on the side. You can't show any emotion at all. All you can do is stare and kind of look wistfully in the distance.
Mm.
And all your mind is thinking, get up,
Yeah,
get up,
yeah, yeah.
get up. Don't be something horrible. Don't be, you're thinking that because it's ultimately something you can't control.
No.
As a coach, it kills you. So he went down, and there is a defensively the drop off between having Thompson and having Shelton is the equivalent of the drop off between having Shelton and having me. I mean, the Thompson is that, and that's not because Shelton is that bad, but he's not really a defensive five.
Mm.
He's a bit undersized for that. He's been doing a good job for them offensively, but
Yeah.
Thompson is an absolute monster defensively.
Mm.
Um, and when they play multiple minutes, and you've seen it recently as kind of, Thompson's being played longer and longer into the third quarter and then into the beginning of the fourth quarter and all of that,
Mm.
because you don't want to sit him down for more than 2 or 3 minutes if you're Rob, because of the extra effort and the extra advantage plays he makes. So that's why Bristol came back.
Mm.
I thought because they got a little bit more down the middle, and a little bit more to running, and also you can't keep beating the team, you can't keep putting points
Yeah,
in the team.
yeah.
But it wasn't a game which was awfully close.
No. Thompson then came back and he and Jackson had an 8-2 reply, 69, 58,
Yeah,
and
because he came back, didn't he? I think he made a couple. He made it got an offensive rebound
mm,
and put back, and
mm,
then made another play, maybe a 8 foot, 10 foot
mm,
little floater or something like that. It's like, okay, I'm here, and I'm back, and I'm fine. And some guys when they get hurt, or some guys when they hurt their ankle, or like they come back a bit ginger, and it's
mm,
like, okay, well, let's test it out, see what I go. And they kind of use it as a bit of an excuse, say, maybe I can't quite get that one, or I'll just see how I'm
mm,
going, all that stuff. Okay, coach, just feeling it out. And Tom didn't do any of that. He just went and got an offensive rebound straight over the back of
mm,
somebody and put it back in.
mm.
So I thought he was a difference maker in the game.
Jackson, 20 points, 8 of 12 shooting. Abercrombie, 14 points, 8 rebounds. Thompson, 12 rebounds, sorry, 12.6 rebounds, 3 blocks. Johnson, 20. Robinson, 15.7 rebounds. Lewis, 14. London Lions, 94. Cheshire Phoenix, 76. Bobby Planutis and Nick Timberlake in for Cheshire. Cheshire actually started well.
Yeah,
White and
absolutely.
Holden hitting threes, and they were
That's
14-7 up.
2/5 of a boy band, isn't it?
It
Planutis and
is
Timberlake.
2/5 of a
It
boy
really,
band.
I'm sorry, like, at least Timberlake should be a good jumper.
Yeah. We're not going into the
Okay,
Timberlake
so
jokes.
anyway, right. Anyway, I can't. If I make him laugh, he coughs up half
Yeah, yeah, we're in trouble.
of his stomach. Great fun, isn't it?
Yeah, Lions, Cheshire led early, 14-7. Lions with a 12-3 run around the first break to lead 22-19, but then White hit another couple of threes in a 12-0 tear, and Knicks were ahead again, 22-31.
Yeah, the problem was Cheshire played basically a perfect half, and they weren't up at the half for
Mm,
them. They couldn't really play much better insofar as if Skylar has like 5 threes in the first
mm,
12 minutes. It's defensively pretty negligent from London.
mm,
Um, but two, given that Timberlake's playing his first game, he's just off the plane, playing his first or second game. And given the way that Cheshire are now set up, um, that I always thought, and this is why I said that nothing didn't learn anything new about the teams in this game. You struggled to see how Cheshire were going to score the basketball,
mm,
to be honest. I think Holden was required to kind of attack a lot in this game. And it comes down to London are the strongest defensive team in the league. They have the most size. The size is not slow. The size is athletic, and they want to guard people, particularly Adebayo, and to a lesser degree, Sandy. They have great size coming off the bench, which nobody else has with Delaire and Soko. And that wears you down as a team. It's going to wear you down. Cheshire stretched them out for long enough, but looking at them, I didn't see. I'm concerned. I'm a little bit concerned for them. They've got no more changes left. Timberlake, obviously, just off the plane, you can't judge him. Looks like obviously he's Holden's mate from college. Played it with Towson with Holden. Probably did he play with Thompson as well? Thompson there?
Could well have done. I didn't
Yeah,
look it
well,
up,
I
but
know.
yeah.
But and there's always two things about, you need a player at this part of the season. You need somebody who's going to fit. So from Cheshire's perspective, you bring in a guy who played with Holden in college and averaged 17 a game. He's clearly got the ability to play in the BBL on his
Mm,
numbers, on the SLP on his numbers, and he's a good fit and know that Holden's vouching for him. Right, that's good.
mm,
The bad is Holden's vouching for him
mm.
because players generally vouch for their mates, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
and people that they played with, and that doesn't. And my thought process of it was always, well, it'd be a remarkable coincidence if the very best guy for the spot we've got at the
Mm,
moment, amongst all the unemployed basketball players in the whole world, happens to be the
mm.
guy who went to college with my point guard.
Yeah, yeah.
But then again, sometimes it comes down to availability
Mm,
and who's where at a certain time, what's you got. So so you have that. Now, looking at them, both Planutis and Timberlake look like primarily off the catch players.
mm,
So, not guys who are going to break you down off the dribble. You're not going to give them the ball, but the guys going to move off the catch can either attack or shoot, primarily with Planutis shooting, although he got one dunk on a cut.
mm.
Um, the difficulty that I've got for Cheshire is that they've kind of got a bit of that already. Um, in Atwood's kind of a bit like that. Idle Rock is certainly like that. He can a little bit off the dribble, primarily off the cut. It puts a lot of creativity issues on the back of Holden, even more. Austin is different because you can play Austin in different ways. And Austin struggled in this game with the length of London, Hadzibegovic and Delaire. Because three or four times he went to the rim, it's a normal lit, but he's getting it blocked. So it just puts a lot of creativity and scoring off the dribble on Holden. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to sustain that against the very best teams. Now they're going to need better out of Timberlake, and I think they're going to get what they're going to get out of Planutis. He's going to stand there, and if you don't guard him, he's going to drain three after three after
Mm.
three. He just looks like, the other words, you take a picture of him, you watch him shoot the ball, and when he's in his kind of rhythm in his motion, the words 40% three-point shooter just spring
Yeah,
at you.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? That's like, okay, this is what this guy does. Timberlake, I think, has probably got a bit more than that off the dribble as well, because we saw a little bit of attacking off the dribble, drawing a couple of fouls, and he appears to be a kind of a confident guy as well. The question isn't so much whether they can play, it's whether they're going to be the right fit. And I thought in this game, it was certainly too early a game for those two,
Mm,
and without anything else in relation to kind of athleticism, they struggled to score the ball.
mm.
And once Skylar went quiet, once they just finally decided to guard Skylar, um, then the game was a bit of a procession.
Yeah, so you mentioned they were up at halftime, London 44-40. They started 13 to 5 to move it into double figures, and then late in the third quarter, Sandy 5, Adebayo 3, and it was out to 18, 71-53, and that was basically the game.
Yeah, and 53, and now that's 53. What Skylar probably had six threes at that point, or maybe
Mm,
five, six threes. So that's 18 out of the 53 after
5.
three
He only had,
quarters.
oh no, he had 6 in total. Sorry, yeah,
Six in total. He had one at some time. So that they're not generating a lot of offense from anywhere else. If that makes
yeah.
any sense. Um, Now against London, it's not going to be easy for any team to generate a lot of offense.
Mm,
Um, and they've got a bit more time now to get these new guys in and to figure out roles for them. Um, but I haven't got as much time as I think because the games are coming thick and fast,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and the league is beginning to define itself in relation to sections.
Mm,
So we'll see. I mean, we'll talk later about the win on Sunday, which they got and they needed. But London just 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 rolled through this game. I thought, they're very much a sum of their parts as opposed to any individual kind of um, superstar type individual. Even Rai plays within that role, but they rebound and they defend, and that takes you a long way.
it does. Briscoe, 7 of 11, 17 points. Sandy, 6 of 8 for 16 points. Still have 5 of 8 for 16 points. They shot 60% from the floor as a team.
Yeah, I was going to give Sandy. I watched this game thinking I need to give Sandy a lot of praise for the development that he's made. He's a bona fide rotation player now, and he wasn't last year when they were playing him in this kind of a spare minutes. And obviously that comes from the work done on the practice court and playing with better players. I was going to do that, but then I saw him play on Sunday at Leicester. I didn't think he was ready for that game at
Mm,
all. So I'll hold that back a little bit, but I said it now. But that's a big that's a big player development kind of win for for London
mm,
to get what they're getting out of Sandy,
mm.
I think.
White was 6 of 13 from three for 20 points. Holden 5 of 8 for 15 points. Austin and Planutis 12. They were 38% from the floor.
Mm.
And let's go to the game you weren't at, Dave.
I wasn't
New
there, no.
You weren't at the other three either, to be fair. But Newcastle Eagles 84, Sheffield Sharks 92. Still no Matthews for Sheffield. Delpesh a couple of early fouls. First real run of this game was Sheffield scoring 12 in a row with Chapman, Nixon, Rotino hitting threes, Clay getting an and one, and they led 13 to 24.
Yeah, both teams kind of started out a bit slow. Newcastle went with their 0 point guard lineup again, which is what they've
Yeah,
done at Chelsea
interesting.
with kind of Ward Hibbert and Okoro and Knight and Long and Delpesh. Um, and Chapman ran this game in the first half,
Mm,
and in fact, Chapman and Nixon ran this game throughout. I mean, had 51 points between them, and you can't give up 51 points to a starting backcourt in the SLB and expect to win.
mm,
Um, I thought Newcastle's. I get why they've spent a lot of this. The defensive job they did on Leicester in the semi-final, and they did a defensive job on Leicester because they basically held them at 50 and three quarters until the game got mad.
mm,
But in the half court, with Ward Hibbert guarding the ball, and we talked about the switching they could do defensively with all that size and all of that stuff was really impactful. But Chapman, my view, looking at what Chapman isn't Hunter, right? Chapman's a different type of guard to Hunter. And Ward Hibbert is at his best guarding strong guards who are not as quick as Chapman, right? And Hunter's not as quick as Chapman. Hunter's a more of a setup guard. He finds his spots. He waits. He's patient. He throws the ball where he's meant to throw it. He takes what they give him. Chapman's a downhill guard. He's just oomph. He's looking to get downhill. And with Chapman, you've got to beat him to the spot. If you don't beat him to the spot, if he gets you on his hip or on his shoulder or on the screen, gets you on the screen, he's scoring. He's scoring past the big as well. That's not quite the same with Hunter. And I thought that the defense that they employed for the Sheffield wasn't as impactful as it was at Leicester because effectively Chapman is a different type of guard.
mm.
And I think Chapman ultimately needed to be guarded by probably a Caru, but they're trying to save a Caru because he's playing so much offense that they're moving him off the ball and playing him off the ball. Um, and so that's kind of little personnel stuff, which does make a difference because Chapman had about 13 or 14 points in the first 15 minutes of this game, and he got into a rhythm, and then Nixon got into a rhythm as a result as well. And then Newcastle still have this thing about they score in bunches. You
Mm.
never quite know where it's a very, very difficult team to analyze offensively because you never quite know where it's coming from.
Well,
You never.
in this one, Sheffield were up 14. It was Okoro and James is where it came from because they
Yeah,
combined for 12 in a row to cut it to 32,
yeah, it was the
34
first.
mid second quarter.
It was what I called James. James got a call whereby he was fouled and going to the rim, and the ball kind of was as he was about 2 feet from the rim, but the ball ricocheted on the foul straight into the hands of Delpesh into the basket, and the refs called it a pass. Said he passed off.
Mm,
And if you look at James's face, James is absolutely incredulous. He didn't even know where the ball had gone,
mm,
And James got, to use a phrase, he got pissed off.
mm.
He was pissed off, and suddenly he's got four threes. So there's something in that for Newcastle in relation to how to get his motor running.
Mm,
Because I'm quite certain it was like what he was like, oh, man, I've had all this stuff, and then he just started making plays. And as I say, the thing with Newcastle is that they kind of might be a Cora's turn, then it's James's turn, then Long might make a couple, and another game's been Alan Aikens who scores make three or four baskets in a row, and you never quite understand where it's coming from. And because of that, it doesn't feel overly sustainable. But they continue to kind of
sustain it. I
yeah,
was
they
talking to somebody
sustain it.
on yesterday about Newcastle. Was it on Sunday? I can't remember. About Newcastle. I was like, I can't work them out, to be honest with
Yeah,
you. Even
yeah.
now, I sort of still not quite sure what they are.
No, no, I'm with you on it, but I think they're short point guard. I mean, that's what they
Well,
are.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
My
There is that.
perspective,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
short point guard with Jordan Spencer's kind of regressing a little bit, and he's a bench guy. And the Knight's bringing the basketball at the court, or the car was having to guard the corner, and Waterford's guarding the ball. There really are. There's a lot of game planning going into what they're doing, and the difficulty with doing a lot of game planning to cover holes is you've got the holes in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So eventually, you can game plan as much as you can, but eventually, you're not going to get the stops you need. And offensively, they're in the 80s, and
Mm,
the reality is they need to be defensively in the 80s. And there was too many mental breakdowns in this game for Newcastle, from the defensive perspective. Now, Sheffield are. I've talked a lot about Newcastle. Sheffield are a very competent offensive team, but the basic rule is you can't let Chapman and Nixon beat you, and Newcastle did. They had to make the ball go somewhere else, and they didn't enough. And Nixon scored 28 points in this game, and I don't think he got to the rim once.
mm,
I think he needed to. That means that you're not playing him right. You need to be forcing him to get to the rim, make tougher plays. Um, Against that, he made some tough shots.
mm,
But he makes tough shots. That's his game. He does make tough shots. He's a tough shot maker. And of course, you throw in the fact that Newcastle has beaten Sheffield twice,
mm.
and we're in a final that Sheffield probably think they could have been in. And and Sheffield are just in a slightly better rhythm at the moment. So yeah, I wasn't surprised by the game. I was disappointed by the way that Newcastle's defense failed them down the stretch because they gave themselves a shot to win.
They did. Nixon banked in a three on the halftime buzzer. Speaking of shots,
Yeah,
4 point game. Sheffield then started with a 12-4 run to lead by double figures, 45-57. Newcastle responded 15-3 run to tie the scores at 60-60. And then Nixon pushed it back out to 7 at 60-67. And to be honest with you, they always had enough of a cushion there. They never got
they
down
did, and
close
and,
enough.
and we don't- that kind of run at 60-60 was a bit of a gut punch for Newcastle because their defense didn't hold up. They had a bit of momentum, but their defense didn't hold up. And then down the stretch, whilst they always had enough because they made plays, and Atiba went very small again. He went with his four guards around Clay, and so effectively, Jeffries is playing the four spot effectively at
Mm,
the end there. So they were, so four consecutive possessions. You look at it, they run a horn set and Je off to Jeffries and throw it back to Jeffries, which is an easy switch on the screen. It's a point Chapman throwing it to Jeffries. He just switch. Well, Newcastle drew two to the ball. James didn't realize he had to switch. So the ball gets thrown back to Jeffries. I think it was a 5 point game at that point. Newcastle just made a three. Bang, Jeffries makes a 27-footer. That's what he does. Okay. Next possession down there. I can't remember the order that these are in. Nixon gets a three-shot foul off James.
mm,
James has a hand on him. Nixon goes up, three-shot foul again. Newcastle scored down the other end. Again, they were looking for a bit of a couple of stops just to get to give themselves a shot. Then Delpesh commits a three-shot foul I think on Chapman at the top of the key, an awful foul where he was laid out there and he lunged and he was miles into his landing space. So again, you keep putting them on the line to get the chance to set up a defense, and they're getting a good outcome. And the final one was when they over trapped with about a minute and a half to go, and Clay attacked from the halfway line.
yeah, yeah,
And Delpesh has to foul him. He has to, well, no,
yeah,
he has to
yeah,
foul the shot. Clay
yeah, yeah,
basically dunked on Delpesh.
yeah.
He's got
He
Jeffries in the
dunked
far
on him because
corner.
he wasn't in front of him. That was the
That's
thing.
right, yeah, because
It was
he's
almost
got.
like he was inviting him to dunk on him.
Well, that's right, and I know he's got Jeffries in the far corners, but he wasn't going to guard him either.
Yeah.
He's too far away, right?
There was no
So
way
that's
Clay was passing that ball, by the way.
no, no, no. And so
Yeah.
there's a big man, that's a big man on a big man. Clay's probably 4 of 8 on the foul line
Mm,
that game, right? He hadn't made a lot of free throws, right? He's coming at you, and instead of putting his body there at the very least and saying you're going to score over me,
mm,
I'm going to take the foul, make you make them from the line. He kind of put up a weak, kind of indecisive hand, no contact at all. I'll live with that if that's a 6'3" guard doing his best.
mm,
But you're a 6'8" center, that guy's coming at you, you've got to put your body in there, and he didn't. So it's four defensive plays,
mm,
which I thought was soft. Easy switch, two, three-shot fouls. And it's interesting because Stuttle's finished off most of his games small this year, like that we're talking about with Manchester. with Alan Aikens at the five. And this game he kept Alpecin, but probably because of Clay. And Alan Aikens didn't play much. Alan Aikens has kind of been lost the last 3 or 4 games in the rotation. He's having the rookie mid-season girlfriend soon,
Mm,
and and he didn't go back to Alan Aikens until 3 minutes to go, and the magic wasn't quite there.
mm,
So I thought Sheffield did everything they were meant to do. I'm still I'm sold on Sheffield's talent. I'm not sold on their focus. I like Leicester's focus better. I like London's focus better. Um, I think the two guards are as good as you're going to come up against, and you've got to deal with them. And if you over help on them, then certainly Groves and those other guys are going to beat you. And obviously, they didn't even have Matthews playing either. But I don't know. I want to see a little bit more intangible from Sheffield. Clay gives them a lot of it,
mm,
but just a little bit more. And maybe I'm thinking of the game on Sunday as much as a game on Friday
mm,
in saying that. But they're a top three team. Whether they're going to get any higher is going to come down to their focus,
mm,
I think.
mm. I'm a little higher on Sheffield than you are, I think. Uh,
No, I'm high on them,
yeah.
but I'm also looking at thinking that it's a game that they were up in Newcastle, what, 13 in the first half, 13 in the third quarter.
Mm,
On both times, they kind of lost their focus a little bit. They allowed the other team back into it. I think Newcastle bailed them out at the end of that game with fouls, with cheap stuff,
mm,
defense. Um, and similarly, I don't think they started the game against Surrey on Sunday very well at all either. So their talent, I'm up on. I'm still wanting just to see how they. I want to see how they're not fully gelled on it yet. So we will see.
James, 7 of 11 for 21 points and 5 assists. Okoro, 18. Knight, 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Nixon, 28.7 rebounds. Chapman, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. Groves, 9 was the only other scorer. Well, he wasn't in double figures. Nobody else in double figures. Uh,
No, they got to dominate the ball too,
yeah,
and they beat them. They were too good for them.
yeah, 56% from the floor for Sheffield versus 41% from the floor for Newcastle.
And then it
Well,
comes down to who's shooting the ball,
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you trailed it. Let's go to it. Sunday, Sheffield
Mm.
Sharks 82, Surrey 89 77. Trading scores in the first quarter, apart from a 6-0 run from Surrey, it's back and forth in the opening 10
The first
minutes.
5 minutes was just offense,
Mm,
and again, Sheffield beat Surrey a couple of weeks ago, didn't they, in that
mm,
gym? So again, this is what I'm talking a little bit about the focus. I thought you can, there's a tell with Sheffield, and that's generally a Tiber is a tell. You can tell when a Tiber is frustrated with his team. Just a bit antsy with his team. You can see when his team gets a bit antsy as well. And he was quite properly frustrated in this game. I think they were down about 10 or 11 in the first,
mm,
maybe really in the second quarter. And there was a little, and Nixon was a little bit, was putting his hands up a little bit and all this type of stuff. And Chapman's focus wasn't where it was on Friday night from my perspective. So he was having to go a little bit deeper into his bench to sort things out. And Surrey are the most frustrating team because they will run their stuff and they will score and they will get the ball where it needs to go. And you'll play good defense for 18 seconds and Jalen Ray will make a shot or Josh Steele will drive left, finish right, or the ball will go into Adelican and he'll make a play and they just keep scoring. Um, and I just thought there was a level of frustration in Sheffield's play in this game. And what happened, which hurt, sorry, was that Lawrence had someone step on his foot, so he was injured in the first
mm.
quarter. He never came back on. He's a depth piece that they just cannot afford to lose because um, their bench in the third quarter unfortunately failed to basically maintain the
Let's
pressure.
just run through the first half before we get there.
Yeah.
End of the first quarter, Ray with a buzzer three after the buzzer three, but a buzzer three.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was the first one of the season, wasn't it? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
ridiculous. I can
yeah.
see it within 2 seconds. I rewind, boom, there's the light on, there's the shot. It's no basket. Yeah, nobody else can. It is an embarrassment to the league. It is an embarrassment to the sport. It's unfair to the refs. It is unfair to the teams. It is easily solvable, and it's indefensible.
Mm. Hunt and
So
Chalavinskas then hit threes to start the second quarter, so they got out to that double figure lead you were talking about, 25-35. End of the second quarter, Nixon hits a three in time
yeah,
to
yeah,
cut it to five at the break, and Surrey was still six up mid third quarter, but this I think what you were just leaning
yeah.
towards. Sheffield a 17-2 run to lead 69-60 early in the fourth
Yeah, and the
quarter.
key was the two because the two came over about 8 minutes, and
Mm,
about those 8 minutes, they didn't get a good, they got maybe one. The only good look they got was a cut from Chelavinskas off a pass from the top. And I didn't like their rotations at this point. I thought Lloyd was too trusting of his bench. If you compare that to, for instance, Rob, against London, where he's got only Shelton played 7 minutes and Bowman played 4 minutes. That type of thing. It's like, no, these guys are my guys. We're playing these guys because I think for Surrey to win that game, and they were halfway there on Sheffield's floor, it needed them to maintain the pressure to kind of encourage a little bit of mental disintegration with Sheffield. Sheffield were antsy in that game, and um, and I think unfortunately when we had the lineup on at the end of the third quarter, which was basically Gooden and the bench guys. I think maybe Gooden, Steele, and the bench guys, Hunt, Cholovinskis, and Ogundembe. They couldn't generate any offense,
mm,
and they couldn't generate any good offense, any good looks. They weren't just missing. There was nothing there. And I think I'd have given it two, maybe three possessions. And the difficulty was he didn't have Lawrence to generate that offense,
yeah, yeah.
and that's when the injury hurt. You know, and he kept it going. He kept that, but he's trying to rest those guys, and he had a Delican in foul trouble. Um, But I think he's going to have to be a little bit more imaginative going forward. In particular, Adelkin played 16 minutes in this game. He'll finish with four fouls.
Mm,
Right now, he's a guy that you've seen some of the numbers he's put up. His ability. He's not an incredible defensive player, but he's a presence. You give him the basketball, he can score. Okay. Now, for me, he needed to be on the court, and I appreciate he was in foul trouble um, with some of those bench guys because they needed someone they could throw the ball into,
mm,
and they were running their stuff, and the Hunt was stepping out and all of this stuff. But Sheffield were wise to it by this point.
mm,
And if they have a situation where Ray, James, and Adelican are all off the court at the same time, I fancy my chances. It's the same with Newcastle when they have Knight, Okoro, and Aikens off the court at the same time. I fancy my chances of stopping them
mm.
because there's areas you can go to focus on them. And Sheffield getting those stops, that settled them mentally. So suddenly they're 6 to 8 points up, and they kind of know they're going to win at that point. Chapman knows they're going to win. Nixon knows they're going to win. There's no the kind of the pressure releases a little bit,
Mm.
and so I thought the game was determined then.
It
But that
was, but it was one of those games where I was watching this, and 10 minutes. Sheffield were up 10 with 2.5 minutes to go, and I wasn't going to write anything down, and then it got a little bit interesting.
yeah, I
Surrey
thought
had
it
a
was a little
little
fake
run ahead.
comeback. I thought it was too late. The
Well,
timeout with 2.5 minutes to go, 10.
yeah, the interesting one for me was 112 to go. It's 80-75 at that point.
Yeah.
Chapman misses a three. Gooden's going to
Hmm.
get the rebound. He was accidentally tripped by Groves,
That was
but
a
as a
foul.
result, he lost the ball out of bounds. I thought you got to call a foul there because he's lost the
That was a
ball.
foul. It was a foul, absolutely. And to be fair, I think Gooden knew it was a foul. I think there was a little bit of frustration from Surrey about a couple of calls earlier on as well that they hadn't got. Um, But by that point, you're in that situation, as you say, 10 down, 2.5 minutes to go. Everything has to go in your favour for you
Yeah,
to
yeah,
win.
yeah.
And it didn't. But I
No.
agree with the foul. I mean, you've got to call a trip at any other place on the court, that's a foul. He had his
I
hands on
mean,
the
it was
basketball.
accidental. There was nothing, but he's
Foul.
lost the ball. He's got
It was
the
a foul.
ball and he loses it out of bounds.
Well, the vast majority of trips in basketball are accidental,
Well, yeah, true.
so I thought it was, yeah, I thought that was a call that they blew. Yeah.
Let's just run through the last minute. 55 seconds. Sheffield missed a couple of shots. Surrey eventually got the ball back. Steele with the turnover, but then Chapman threw it too far in front of Clay, so they got it back again. And then 30 seconds to go. Steele inside with the hook. I need you to talk about this one.
Oh, bless you. Keep going, keep going. That must be a hell of a play to make you cough that much. Oh my goodness, the things he does for his crowd, eh? The stuff he puts himself through just to get this nonsense out on the air. How impressive. Keep going, keep going.
Impressive,
I'm just complimenting you.
impressive feeling, Dave.
Impressive feeling. Yeah, I mean, it's just
And then Chapman a little too easy to the rim, 82-77, and that was the ball game.
yeah. I mean, to win on the road, if you're Surrey or if you're Manchester or if you're Caledonia at Sheffield, to be honest, maybe some of the other teams, you are going to have to mentally impact them. In the fourth quarter, they weren't, they were more comfortable than they needed to be. But against that, the fact that it was still basically a one shot, two shot game with a minute to go is what cautions me just a little bit about Sheffield.
Uh,
You know,
yeah.
about that ability to be ruthless and that ability to have that kind of that focus. And it can sometimes be as a result of having the level of talent that you have. And we had it in some of the seasons we were, where you get frustrated as a coach because some of your guys are cruising
Mm,
because they know they're going to win.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It frustrates the heck out of you as a coach. Whereas you prefer almost the team has to battle and fight for everything, doesn't cruise, doesn't always win.
yeah,
You know. So that's kind of now where it really matters is when the top four is playing against each other.
yeah, yeah,
Then there is no cruising. And if you've got cruise control, or if you're easily kind of pushed off a little bit off track mentally, that's when the game disappears. So that's my only kind of knock on Sheffield. It's a good, I mean, good weekend for them. DMA to be,
yeah, yeah,
and sorry, I'm not an easy out anywhere. But I just as I say, without Lawrence, with Adele only playing 16 minutes, they needed to keep scoring, and they stopped scoring.
yeah.
They keep pointing that game.
Clay, 19 points, 9 rebounds. Nixon, 17 points, 8 assists. Gooden, 16.6 rebounds. James, 19 points. Ray, 17, 6 assists. Gooden and Steele both had
And the
11.
interesting number on that is that Ray was a +5 maybe in this game, or whatever he was. But what that meant was that Surrey lost the 6 minutes he didn't play by 13,
Mm,
right? And for me, that was because of the other guys they had on court when he wasn't on court. When he wasn't on court, they didn't have their other scorers on court as well.
mm,
He's such a big guy for them and helping them out at the end of shot clocks and making tough step backs and keeping defenses honest. And he was +5. They lost by 8.
mm. Lost by 5 in the end.
Sorry, he's +8 and they lost by 5.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
fault. So again, so he's +8. So they lost by 13 when he wasn't in the 6 minutes he didn't play.
Mm,
So it's like Denver and the non-Jokic minutes that everyone
yeah,
talks
yeah,
about. They
yeah.
destroy teams with the Jokic and lose without. They got to find a way of playing without Ray.
Cheshire Phoenix 87, Caledonia Gladiators 69. The return of Robbie Pears and James Hamilton to the Northwest. Skylar White out for Cheshire Gladiators, still with only their 6 players. This is probably the weirdest game of the season, if I'm honest, in terms
Well,
of
you got the beginning and you got the beginning letter and the last letter, right?
what was that?
If I give the worst,
Well, worst. Oh,
that was the
really?
worst game of the season. I thought it was awful. I'll be honest. I'm sorry. Sorry about the players. I'm not saying the players played awfully,
Mm,
but I thought as a spectacle, I thought if I was going to give it the analysis that the game deserved, basically, Cheshire 5 of 25 threes in the first half, generally off one pass. Caledonia set up in a zone that wouldn't have looked out of place in like the 1970s in my school gym. Just Caledonia having 6 players. Cheshire at times, shot selection was horrible. I didn't think it's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult for Cheshire because I know the Cheshire fans were like, "Oh well, they're not calling any fouls," but there was no fouls to call because
mm.
Caledonia were
Just
almost
standing there.
they were standing there. I mean, it was like they were allergic to getting within 5 feet of the
Mm,
shooters, but they
mm,
didn't need to because Cheshire were just jacking up anything.
mm,
Right? It wasn't until the middle of the third quarter that someone, either TJ Atwood took it upon himself to go stand in the middle of the zone at the high post, or
mm,
somebody told him to, that suddenly the ball started hitting the middle of the court, hitting the high post, and everything opens up from there because you're
mm,
getting kick out threes. And kick out threes are a lot better than kind of around the horn first time up threes. Um, I thought Dunbar just strolled his way through this game.
mm.
Um, he is very Jekyll and Hyde. Wilson Frame looked like a pro. He played it. He did what he does. He turned up. He showed up. He made his shots. He made his plays. Um, and Barnes again played competitively as well. But I tweeted towards the end of the third quarter. I mean, would it be nice if Caledonia maybe tried to guard somebody?
Mm,
I don't, and I know you got six players, so you don't want to burn them out. You don't want to get into foul trouble, but they weren't in any foul trouble, ultimately by the third quarter. You don't want to burn them out. You don't want to burn their energy out. But it's dispiriting as a player just standing there and watching people just shoot open threes.
mm.
I think it would be. You're
Well,
taking,
I'm not overly convinced that all of them think that, but there you go. Um,
well, I just think as a player, you want to be in control of your own destiny, right?
mm,
And if someone's going to beat you, you want to kind of face up to them and say, okay, you beat me today. But just kind of just plodding yourself down. I appreciate they've got Theo Hughes playing as well. It's difficult for him to match up with anyone in Cheshire, so there's logic in having a zone there as well. So I get that too. But there can be better zones than that. There can be more mobile zones than that, you know. And they basically they basically defended Timberlake into form.
yeah.
Because just
Let's
gave it
let's just pick up some of the stuff from
open
the
look after
first
open
half.
look. And at the end, he's got 20 points on 40%
Yeah,
shooting. We're all thinking, oh, 40%, we'll take
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And he's probably sitting there thinking, man, I should have made nine.
yeah. The other thing that Gladiators were doing was turning the ball
Well, that was
all
the other
over
thing
the
because
place.
they have
Se
really no quickness and no
17,
teleography to look after the ball.
yeah. 17 first half turnovers, 19 points from those 17. Cheshire were 37-27 ahead 4 minutes from halftime. And then Caledonia, this is what the weirdness. Caledonia then 15 points in a row to lead at the break.
I think Cheshire had, what, 23 more shot attempts at half time
It
than
was at
Caledonia?
half time, the field goal shooting was 16 of 48 versus 16 of 31.
So it's 17
Mm,
more field goal attempts and you're down.
yeah,
I mean, that should just not be possible.
it should not be
You
possible.
know, that kind of stuffs my mathematical or arithmetical mind
Mm,
up.
mm,
It's just too much of it, too much of a gap. You've got 17 more shots and you're losing.
mm,
If you take the account that, given that nine of them are probably threes,
mm.
on the proportion that they're shooting, that gives you 43 more potential points. And I think the foul shots were pretty similar, so there's nothing there.
Yeah,
43 more
there
potential.
was about five foul shots difference at halftime, I think.
So maybe 40 more potential points, and you're still losing. That shows just how I thought lackadaisical Cheshire were in relation to their offense. Obviously, they didn't have Skylar White to shoot threes, which he kind of made six on Friday night to help them out, help their
Mm,
numbers out there. But they got decent looks, but they didn't. I just thought, nah, nah. I mean, Larry Austin was the one thing in this game which actually made it worth watching because he was having one of his Larry Austin games where he's getting steals and getting in there, getting layups and nicking the ball and just being a pest. But the reason I don't want the Cheshire fans getting upset with the refs. The reason Cheshire got fouls and Caledonia didn't because Cheshire tried to play defense. So don't
mm,
be upset about that.
mm,
Don't be upset about that. Caledonia just tried to be out there.
mm. Wilson Frame was 5 of 8 for three for 17 points at halftime.
Mm.
Scott Grayson then hit a couple of threes, and Cheshire back in front in the third quarter. They kept a shot or two in front for the rest of the quarter, and then, well, you described it slightly better than I, and I said he looked like he'd not got his legs under him, and then finally found them. But you're probably right there. To Caledonia defended Timberlake into form because he hit three threes, Idle Rock another two, and they blew the game open,
And that's what those guys
79-66.
do, isn't it? They are what looks like catch and shoot, play off the catch, standstill shooters.
Mm.
Um, I don't know what is the illness with Caledonia? Was Fag Benley ill and ill?
I was told two of them were too ill to travel, but I didn't actually find out which two.
I'm not
I
going to
don't
be
know.
I'm not going to be
Ali Hodgic
unsympathetic
was
towards illness.
there.
You and I, man.
Yeah. Ali
Rodgers was there.
Hodgic was
Yeah.
there.
Well, he's hurt. I think he's got an injury.
Yeah.
Because he was hurt at Newcastle. As I say, if they're ill, they're ill, and given the week we've had, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be unsympathetic. But I'm not seeing much room for growth in what they've got. That kind of concerns me. And I think they may have games whereby Dunbar and Kane, when he comes back, are
Well,
really
Kane was there as
material.
well. Sorry,
Kane
he
was there.
was
I
there.
mean, he's hurt as well. He hit his hip at Newcastle, from what I
Mm,
could see from the sideline. But they may have games where those guys are really mercurial and they keep them in the game.
mm,
But I just think they're going to need some form of um, defensive identity. The reason they won at Newcastle in the game they won with Robbie is because they played defense in the first half.
mm,
And they challenged shots. They didn't play much zone in the first half. They challenged shots. They were competitive. They used their physicality really well. They rebounded the ball really well, and they got out in transition and ran.
Mm,
That's why they won. I just don't think, even with six guys, I don't think they can win sitting in zones.
mm. Timberlake, 17 points, 6 of 16 shooting. Planutis, 16. Scott Grayson, 16. 39 points from turnovers they ended up with, which is the most, not including games involving
I mean,
Wales and Scotland
Planutis
and that for
must be.
6 years.
I mean, with a name like Planutis, right? He must be the illegitimate child of Pluto Voliotis.
Apparently, Pluto's son is very good, by the way.
I'm
I've
sure he
not
is,
seen
but I
him
mean,
play.
Pluto Volio is a guy who played for. I've just thought about Planutis. It's kind of.
Mm.
Pluto played for Sheffield and
He was the
Manchester.
assistant at
I think he did.
Manchester, was it
Yeah,
last year or the year before?
yeah. I think he actually was in Newcastle for a couple of years in the 90s, and he was a excellent three-point shooter, 6'9" three-point shooter, stretch before there was a stretch. But no, it
Mm,
just came to me. I mean, I'm also getting kind of vibes of Pizza Planet and Toy Story 3, which my daughter's just been watching there
mm.
with Planet. And it just seems like it's a great name. It's a great name. I'm a big fan of the name. And to be
Uh,
fair,
yeah, he can, yeah. Wilson Frame, 24 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Whelan, 15. Hughes, 13, 29 turnovers. Their final shooting numbers were 33 of 83 versus 25 of 57.
26 shots. And I think outside of in a category we'll call non-leads stats,
Mm.
the most turnovers for a long time.
Well, I'd have to look to see what was before Leeds because I
Yeah.
skipped I skipped over Wales and St Mirren and Edinburgh.
Oh yeah,
So,
you don't count. No, don't. Those games are just
but I but
established
I
for you.
stopped at Leeds because they were league games at that point. So,
Yeah, and Leeds just so that people who just joined recently, Leeds had a team in the mid 2000s and for a couple of years quite competitive team. And then the very last year, unfortunately, the university pulled the funding on them the
mm,
day before they came up against Jay Sean Page at the
mm,
beginning of the season, and they basically played with some local league guys, and the American hadn't played, and Ingus Bankovic, and unfortunately, they got beat by 40 or 50 in a lot of games,
mm.
and hence had
80
lots
in
of
that game.
88 in that game, yeah.
Mm,
The worst 88-point win you ever had.
mm,
Last thing,
mm.
new team, let's win by 80 at the beginning of the season. That'll help
Yeah,
us.
yeah, 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 yeah. Let's let's
Okay, we're
move.
good.
Yeah, let's move to Monday. Thor Nimley and Jay Sean Page, didn't they both have 30 or 40 or
30
something
odd in
as
that
well?
game. Everybody scored in that game.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah,
Uh,
I was I was nearly on the court.
mm,
It was
uh,
interesting. There's a great story in that game. We had a lovely guy. We had a guy playing that game. And the score was about 148 to 60 at the end or something
mm,
like that. And we had a guy playing who called Yuri Gunjina, who would sign from
mm,
Croatian guy. Lovely guy. You really liked him. 6'7" stretch, kind of three-stroke four. And he's come from Eastern Europe to play in
mm,
England, right? And he's come from decent leagues. He played in Spain, I think, as well in Leb Gold or Leb Silver. And we're bringing him off the bench to play against Leeds, and we're up by 60.
mm,
He's coming off the bench at kind of 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, and Fab's having to tell him to smile.
mm,
Yuri, we're winning. Can you
mm.
smile, please? Like Yuri's like, what is this? This
Yeah,
isn't this
yeah.
is this is what I came here for. And,
Mm,
this isn't is this the league we're playing in? The first
mm,
game we're beating the team by 80. This is why
mm,
I'm in the gym. There's nobody in the gym. The floor's skippy. All this stuff. The club's going bankrupt. And
mm.
Fab's like, smile, man, smile. Oh God, this is kind of the New York and the Eastern European kind of
Yeah, yeah,
mix.
yeah.
And I loved you a bit. He was, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed having him around, and he got by the end of the season, he started smiling.
Mm.
But at that point, no, that was the weirdest game.
Let's go to Monday. Leicester Riders 84, London Lions 75. Hadza Begovic out for
What's wrong
London.
with him?
I don't know. He wasn't there. I
No,
didn't
he
hear
wasn't there.
what was
Right.
wrong with him. Uh,
He looked
Thompson,
fine on Friday, didn't he? He didn't. Or he
yeah,
looked
yeah.
fine. Game. He didn't. There was nothing. He saw he had an injury, so he looked fine.
Thompson inside, couple of threes uh, from Leicester as well. They jumped out to an 18-6 lead. You sort of touched on it earlier about how they.
Yeah, I mean, the only say the semi-finals, the only game they haven't jumped out on teams probably
Mm,
been 2 months in that gym. Um, this game it was fun to watch and it wasn't. That's a weird mix of suggestions. it was fun to watch because it was a real physical battle.
Mm,
And that's, a real physical battle. But at times it got into kind of the arduous and into the, so gritty it became a difficult watch, if that makes any
mm,
sense.
mm,
And the lane was very crowded and there's lots of physicality going on. I thought the refs struggled with this game, if I'm
mm.
honest. I thought the physicality level was so different to some of the stuff. I mean, compare that game to Caledonia, Cheshire for
Yeah,
physicality.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
you were at both.
Yeah, yeah. It was
I
a little
mean,
different.
a little different. I mean, you can't pick one play and say that's different to that play, but the reality is it's just a totally different ball game. It's just a
Mm,
totally different. And I thought that basically, well, I say the refs struggled. I thought that they ended up basically favouring the team that was most aggressive at any point in the game.
mm,
So um, London started out with their normal lineup, but without Hadžibegovic and with Soko inside instead. And that takes a lot away from actually what they had going with Soko's explosiveness off the bench.
mm,
And it forces him into kind of a physical battle um, with Thompson. And to be fair, Soko's kind of always been a four. You can play the five, and you
mm,
play the five in kind of four out situation. But he's kind of got the body and athleticism of a four as well. So, it's a tough matchup for him with Thompson. Um, they also lose a little bit of shot creation because Begovic has been scoring the ball early on for them.
mm,
Being able to give him the ball. And he's a focal point at the top of the key, moves the basketball. If you overplay him, he'll dribble and you get to the rim and do lots of things for them. And that lineup without a true point guard, because you've got Ryan Brisker, and then
mm,
you've got Sandy and Adebayo, it really relies on a lot of hustle plays. And the problem is Leicester's the hardest team to make hustle plays against because they hustle themselves and
mm,
they're focused at the moment. And I thought Leicester, and they've got Thompson cleaning up to make as the extra hustle guy. Um, and they struggle to generate good shots, London. And part of that I thought was that I thought Sandy and Adebayo were just a little bit overmatched.
mm,
Or offensively, at the offensive end. Adebayo is still only shooting, what, 22, 23%, from the 3-point line. He's done remarkably well this year for effectively a rookie. But, I was looking at his college stats today. When he averaged 3 points a game in college, he wasn't an
mm,
offensive player in college. He was a guy, came out to do a certain job. And Sandy, we've talked about, has improved, but, it's a different level of play against, Cheshire with two new guys as it is against Leicester in that gym ready to go on the top of the table clash. So it wasn't until Peterson came in, the point guard,
mm,
and that they was able to space them out a little bit more and they could get anything going offensively. By that point, Johnson had made a couple of threes. The ball was moving for Leicester. Leicester were in a rhythm and they were in a game.
mm. Yeah, like it was London's bench actually when Peterson came in and Flood that pulled them back into it. And actually, the bench had 30 points in the first half. Flood and Peterson didn't miss a shot.
Yeah,
London
I
edged
mean,
the second quarter and were just ahead at halftime.
yeah, it is really the choir boy look, isn't it? You'd call
Mm,
it. You go from the Bruise Brothers into the choir boys with Peterson in particular.
yeah,
Bless him.
very
He looks
angelic
like
looking.
He looks like he's 12, I
Mm,
mean,
he does.
he really does, but I like him. I
Mm,
like his game because he's shown a degree, he's bigger than you think, and he's shown that degree of kind of physical toughness in various different
mm,
games. I don't he's not your kind of your 3-point shooting point guard. He's more your aggressive, kind of get in your face, run the team, get to the rim when I can type point guard.
mm,
He's got some fakes and all of that stuff. So he came in and gave them a real boost, and then Flood's knocking down shots. They need that because they don't have that much in the way of outside shooting
mm,
if Briscoe's not on.
mm,
So that allowed them to get a little momentum. Leicester on the bench a little bit, which again opened things out a little bit for London. But primarily, as you say, it was Peterson and Flood who allowed them to score the ball, and they had
mm.
45
And
points.
Delaire as well.
Well,
Um,
Delaire's a massive. Delaire's something nobody else in the league has got.
mm,
You know, the advantage Bozic has is bringing him off the bench is
mm,
substantial on everybody else because he's a genuine 6'10". He can score the ball in a variety of ways. He can make foul shots, and he's comfortable scoring one-on-one.
mm,
And we haven't got that many guys in the league who you would say are truly comfortable at that size, probably ever, at scoring the ball as well as he does. Most people who played at his height in our league are kind of different types of players, not 6'10".
mm.
Andy Thompson was like 6'10", but he's a different player to Andy Thompson.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
And there's not many guys who've been the size of Andy Thompson in the league. So he's just a massive advantage for them. Um, but again, he had to play the five a lot in this game as well because
Mm,
again, without Hasanbegovic, they've got some minutes to find at the five.
mm,
So when Soko goes out, basically it's him at the five. And he's not as natural a five because he's not as wide-bodied. He likes to float out and to kind of duck in to get the ball in the post and catch and finish, as opposed to being in the middle setting all the screens.
So in the third quarter, threes from Johnson, Hunter, and Wright, and five in a row from Jackson. Leicester back ahead, 61-53. Fourth
Well, I think I
quarter.
should be taking royalties on. I think I
Mm,
should be taking royalties on it, right? Don't you? I mean,
mm,
ever since Pablo tuned in and told me and listened to me telling him to bring Ethan Wright off the bench. Ethan Wright's, he's the best bench player in the league,
mm,
and it's a mentality thing. It's not a talent thing. He had the talent, but coming off being the fourth option or the fifth option in the starting five means you don't really get to touch the ball that much early on. You're getting in the flow of the game. Now he knows when he comes in, he has the absolute green light.
mm,
So everything's going up, and he's a confident scorer. He's a scorer. So suddenly in this game, he has 21 points in 19 minutes, and he wins it on 12 shots, and he wins the game for them
mm,
effectively. Because without his points, they don't win the game. And and as you say, and I'm going to have to stop calling him sneaky athletic because he's
mm.
just athletic.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm just athletic. He's Ricky Ponting athletic.
Mm,
So there's times that he's making tough baseline drives and finishing. And it doesn't look athletic because he's not over the top of the rim, but it actually is because he's having to
mm,
jump up, contort his body, lean in, and still have the presence of mind and the ability to kiss it in off the glass. So Ethan Wright, and I thought this is where I thought London weren't very smart with the refs in the third quarter. I thought the third quarter was what decided the game. London got into foul trouble. There was a number of I think they maybe 6 or 7 fouls, number of fouls in the penalty in the third quarter,
mm,
which let Leicester score the ball towards the end of it with the shot clock, with the clock turned off. Leicester are a good foul shooting team, or should be anyway. Um, and I thought it was firstly because Leicester were the aggressor. I thought refs it wasn't so much the fouls they called on London. I thought there was a couple that they didn't call on Leicester, which I thought they could have called, a couple of hand checks, that type of stuff. That got London frustrated. They looked at the scoreboard mounting up 6-0,
mm,
7-0, getting more frustrated, and they lost their discipline a little bit. But they're a physical team. They're the most physical team in the league. Nothing wrong with that. Um, they challenged the refs to make calls in this game. The refs kind of did make calls against them, and they didn't really like it.
mm. Uh,
I'm not going to go through every call and say whether they were good
no,
calls, bad
no,
calls,
no, no.
whether the rest were right or wrong, because it was too much of a physical game to do that.
It was brutally physical, and actually, as you say, some were right, some were not, and some were this
So
way and some were that.
yeah, I just thought I thought there was one in the fourth quarter where Thompson hooked Soko right in front of the London bench, where and where that I thought at that point they lost their composure a little bit. London, the refs
Mm,
called a foul on Soko on the perimeter. And he watched it back, and it was kind of clear as day that he kind of chicken winged him. But overall, you have to keep
What he
Leicester off the
can't do is then commit the fourth foul on the inbound.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Then he commits another one. That's it.
Mm,
That becomes a mental thing,
mm,
because you feel that sense of injustice because the bench has that sense of injustice. The reason I say it's right in front of the bench is
mm,
it becomes relevant because the bench sees it, so the bench is talking about it. So the player is then innovated by that, energized by that. So then he's over aggressive on the next play. I don't think we saw the foul on the TV, but he's over aggressive on that and he
grabbed him.
gets in trouble, grabbed him.
Mm,
So that's the thing. And ultimately, the other thing was, of course, Ryan never got started in this game until
mm,
in the fourth quarter.
yeah.
And while it was close, I thought that London were going to win because Ryan hadn't got started. But that period at the end of the third quarter where it went up to 8, 9, 10 points, um, that meant that when Ryan did get started, it was too late.
Mm.
And
Well, Rye got started in the fourth quarter because it was a Brisker three, and then Aaron Rye getting to the rim. They scored nine in a row and led 72-69 73, but Leicester scored the next 8 points, capped with the three from Abercrombie with 90 seconds to go, which was basically
Yeah,
the
it was a nice
death.
play. I mean, London were playing some proper defense at that time, but the three from Abercrombie was really a three born out of teamwork, born out of playing together for however long, running the same stuff. Because Hunter basically threw a blind pass.
Mm,
He drew two men to the ball on the screen. Abercrombie was rotating around. He wasn't there when he threw it.
mm,
He threw it in the space where he knew Abercrombie was going to be. Peterson was a little bit late on the third man closeout, and Abercrombie, of course, over six, but he's a shooter, so he knocks it
mm,
down, and that kind of won them the game, I think. But London's the reason I say it, they didn't teach me much about either team. I mean, this game, London have I think, one, let's be clear about this. I mean, if you take Thompson out and you put Hadzibegovic in, then London are probably winning this
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah,
You know, so you're missing the starting centre, and if you rotate that the other way around, then it's going to make a difference. But London's issue is still going to be generating good shots if people can guard Rye, and Jackson's a good guy to guard Rye because he's kind of got the same similar body type.
yeah. Mm,
And Rye was never quite in the flow of this game. So then you're relying on other people to guard, other people to create shots. And they didn't have the luxury of having Delaire be that person behind Hadžibegovic. Delaire was right in the middle of the fight this time. Um, didn't get that much from the point guards in the second half.
mm,
Leicester's strength is their first six players.
mm,
You know, they're really, really good. And, you've got a big guy who's gone for six blocks against,
yeah.
a team that's the league. But their issue is going to be their depth, and there isn't enough. I hope Rob got a lorry load of cotton wool
Mm,
delivered for Christmas so he can wrap up Thompson in it.
mm,
Because he's irreplaceable with him at the moment. He's
mm,
absolutely dominating the league at the moment.
mm. Yes. Wright, 21. Thompson, 16 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 blocks. Jackson, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Delaire, 16 points, 8 rebounds. Peterson, 15 points, 5 assists. And Rye, 14 points and 8 rebounds. So let's have a quick
Very
look at.
quiet, 14 points and 8 rebounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Most of it was at the end, wasn't it? Was in the
As I say,
fourth quarter.
I hope we'll have a probably a slightly more experienced crew on that game the next time they play. I think they play
Mm,
each other quite soon. I think the physicality of that game was just a bit of a shock for everybody and certainly
mm,
for the refs as well.
mm. Uh, So, top of the table going into 2025, London and Sheffield, both 8 and 3. Leicester just behind 7 and 2. Newcastle with games to make up. They're 4 games back of London and Sheffield, 4 and 3. Cheshire 4 and 5. Manchester 3 and 5. Surrey 3 and 6. Bristol 2 and 4. They've got a ton of games to play as well. Only played 6. And
Yeah, that's
Caledonia one and
European.
nine.
Yeah, they've played both those teams have played six European games, haven't they? And the
Mm,
problem with
mm,
those European games is it does take away from doubleheader weekends being
mm.
available at times
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
play on a Wednesday night or whatever. Um, and on top of that, Newcastle and Bristol both got to the semi-finals. So
Mm,
that's another two games as well. So they're gonna have to catch up, but that's the way it is. Deal with it. You're a pro player, it's your job.
yeah.
Um, I think there is but I referred to it briefly before. I think there is a little kind of hierarchy developing now, and I think we see the top three there. I think it'd be difficult to see that those won't be the top three at the end at this point. Um, Outside of that, you then have this kind of middle group, and Newcastle are probably best placed, subject to, as I say, they need to find a point guard, subject to finding a point guard to kind of bridge that gap. I'm not sure they will with the European stuff they've got going on because they're probably going to get to the quarterfinals of that competition,
Mm,
have a couple more games. They're also going to have the trophy final to think about. So I'm not sure their focus is going to be ready at this point to the next 7 or 8 league games. Cheshire, I'm still on the fence about because I'm not sure that they've got no more changes, and they may prove me wrong, but I'm a little bit worried about their shot creation. I think their identity may have to change a little bit. I'm not sure if they're set for that. We'll see. Um, Manchester are getting better, but they strike me as at the moment every 500 team I've ever seen in British basketball.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Every win at home, lose away team that you've ever seen. Maybe I just think there's a lot of moving pieces there. So we'll see where they go. They've got the talent to be top four, but I don't think they're quite there. Cheshire, Manchester, Newcastle. That leaves us with Surrey, Bristol, and Caledonia. Bristol, again, they're going through the same as Newcastle. They've got the trophy final to think about. They've got the European games to think about. Um, no easy wins, so you can't see them traversing the gap. Caledonia, I'm not. I'm fearful. And
Sorry.
Surrey are going to Surrey.
Mm.
Surrey are going to be Surrey.
Well, which
And
usually means they win on New Year's Day, doesn't it? Isn't that
I
the?
think I'd be surprised. There'd be a good win for them tomorrow. It would be a
Yeah,
good, given what happened to London, given what
yeah.
happened to London at Leicester. Also, you know, they're down in American Surrey. Will they replace?
Mm,
And also, if they're down, Lawrence's injuries generally aren't short. So
mm.
if Lawrence is out for a period of time, that could be really damaging for them as well. So yeah, so I think top three pretty much set. I think we're gonna have to really pay attention to games between those and head-to-heads between those three
Mm.
teams. Um, and Newcastle, maybe, they're 4-3. If they win the next 3 or 4 games and go on a run, then maybe they could poke their head in there. But I'm not sure. I think there may be a little bit too much going on with them
Mm.
to do that. Um,
Well,
so
we will
wait and see.
see when
Of course, I think
2020.
Newcastle play Leicester this week, so that'll be
Yeah.
the that's the separation game for Leicester. If Leicester
Mm,
win that game, it's 2-0 in the head-to-head, and also
mm.
2 losses ahead as well. And Leicester are going to have that game circled because they lost the semi-final.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
So, yeah, that is amongst the fare for next week as 2025 gets underway. And Dave and I will be back next week on a day to do it all over again, probably Monday. And I'm gonna go take some more Lemsip, I think.
Oh, well, you'd be delighted to know that I'm just about over it now.
There you go. I'm pleased for you. I've only got 3 games this week. I
Oh
might,
man, it's the
yeah,
thing. The voice is your trade, fortunately.
I know,
Uh,
I know.
yeah, I can see
So
it already.
have a good New Year. If anybody listens to this before 12 o'clock, I doubt it. A few people probably will. And enjoy Surrey, all of you hardy folks who head out to the sports park on New Year's Day. And Dave and I will see you in the new year. But for now, goodbye.
Anybody what anybody listens before New Year's Eve, New Year's before 12 o'clock tonight, then yeah, you have my admiration
Hmm.
and sadness and sympathy. Good night.
Good
Happy New Year.
night.